Thank you. Dear Mrs. President, Vice Presidents, dear guests, officials, and most of all, dear delegates, welcome to the panel discussion with the theme European Union Then and Now. We have a great pleasure to have very distinguished guests and in the panel, and we have two members of the Honorary Board of Tampere 2015, and as well we have Miapetra Kumpula-Natri. Mr. Esko, on my right side, served as Prime Minister of Finland from 1991 till 1995. He led Finland to the EU in 1995. Actually, as a little anecdote as well, as far as I heard, at the time when he was chosen Prime Minister, he was the youngest head of government in Europe. There's some inspiration for you as well. In addition, Mr. Aho has also been a president of an innovation fund, Sitra, the Finnish National Fund for Research and Development, and an executive vice president of corporate relations and responsibility at Nokia, and a lecturer and a senior fellow at Harvard. Please welcome Mr. Aho. And to his right side, we have Mrs. Miapetra Kumpula-Natri, who has been a member of the European Parliament since 2014. She is currently a member of a committee on industry, research and energy. And she is a substitute of a committee on employment and social affairs. Please welcome Mrs. Miapetra Kumpula-Natri. And then we have Mr. Matti Vanhanen, who served as Prime Minister of Finland from 2003 till 2010. He was thus also the President of the European Council in 2006. He was recently re-elected to the Parliament, the Finnish Parliament, in 2015. Please welcome Mr. Matti Vanhanen. So, my name is Melissa, and I will be your host tonight. And I welcome you all from my part as well. How are you? You good? Happy to be in Tampere? I was thinking we could start with some warm-up questions. So, you have all a very impressive track record, and I'm sure all our delegates would be interested to know if you took part in any youth activities when you were young. And what did those experiences teach you, and if they have contributed somehow to your successes in later life? Should we start with Ms.
Thank you very much. I'm enthusiastic to be here. I was young, about 20 years ago. I'm 43 now. So I did some activities. I didn't take part in the youth parliament, but I was active in my own party, which is the Social Democrats of Finland. So I happened to be the vice chair of the European ECOSI, the European Socialist Family, and did it give me anything? It gave me a lot. I have a fellows and good memories from that time, because one of the board members was Federica Mogherini, who is now the foreign representative. And then I have many friends who I can now call the former Prime Minister or former Foreign Minister. So I'm sure we have future commissioners and future MEPs here in the plenary. So please get to know everyone in the plenary, so you have good to come to work in Brussels one day. So it gave me a lot. I was active also in the European movement, which is another organization in gathering all the European countries and then also neighboring countries. And from that time I got to know in negotiating country Croatia, one recently joined person from Romania, Corina Cretu, who now happens to be a commissioner as well. So that's very good to have some youth activities and get active on the European level and not to stick to your home country.
So do your committee work and team building very well. We'll continue with Esko.
For the first, I have to ask you, when are you getting old? I have no idea to become old, so it's... I recently heard a very nice story. You know Shimon Peres, he was president of Israel. Actually, he left that position last year. And he is now 92, or actually he's going to be 92 very soon, within next 2 weeks. And I met one Italian friend of mine who is organizing a conference in Italy, and Perez is always there. He's going to be there again early September this year. I will join that event as well. And a couple of years ago, this friend of mine asked Mr. Perez, how come you are 90 years old and you are still such a dynamic person, and you are working hard, and you have a lot of objectives for the future. How come is that possible? And Mr. Perez replied, I feel that a person is young as long as he has more dreams than memories. I think it's a very... But anyway, I'd like to take one memory to start with, so against this rule, against that rule. But anyway, I became chairman of the youth organization of Centre Party 1974, 41 years ago, long ago, anyway. And early 1970s, youth organizations in Europe organized so-called European security and cooperation conferences for youth and student organizations. First two were organized in Helsinki, 1970 and 1972, and the third one was organized in Poland, in Warsaw, 1976. And I was asked to speak, because Finland was the previous host, I was asked to speak in the parliament of building in Warsaw immediately after the president of Poland. I was 21. And I have to say, it was a great, great challenge personally, but also a very important lesson how actually, even in those circumstances, in the middle of the Cold War, it was possible to exchange ideas, to meet, to discuss, to have at least some common dreams, even in those circumstances. My question for you is, how come you can not do the same today, in today's Europe, which is full of opportunities, not that kind of obstacles we faced early 1970s. So dreams can be true if you work for them.
Thank you. And then Mr. Matti Vanhanen.
Thank you. I indeed had youth activities a lot when I was young. I go back to 1970 when I was 15 years ago, so 45 years ago. Then we organized in my school a week of United Nations. United Nations had that year a theme year of population, and I still remember the title of that week. It is some actually. It's relatively near your theme. It was take care of the people and the population will take care of itself. And it had some wisdom, and actually it inspired me to be interested about global issues, and it is continuing still. And actually I can underline that theme, take care of the people and the population will take care of itself, still nowadays. Then the global population was something between 3 and 4 billion. Now you know better than me what it is nowadays. 7 billion. And when you will be after 45 years, let's see what the population then will be. After that, I was in youth organizations a lot. I was also president of, or chairman of the Center Party's youth organization after Esko. But before that, I was also the president of Union of Conscripts. So Finland is a country of associations and unions, and that was one of those unions.
Thank you. And I think we can all agree that European Youth Parliament has also changed all of our lives somehow. It has brought new friends from all over Europe and taught us a lot. So then I would like to go to some more personalized questions, and I would like to start with Mrs. Kumpula-Natri. And you have been now in the European Parliament for a bit more than a year. And how has it been there? How have you felt there? And has your perception of Europe and the European Union changed during this time?
I was quite well prepared. I was 11 years in the national parliament, and all that time I was in the committee of the European affairs, leading that. I was the chair of the European Affairs Council for 3 past years, so I was all too much working for the crisis. We have the economical crisis, all the Euro questions and all those details, but still going to work in the multicultural 28 country everyday life, talking with the people from Greece, from Spain, from Germany, from Italy on the everyday basis. It still makes you think for more European solutions, and that has been very good for me as a person to grow and think more European way. And I think it's very important that people get this feeling that we do have some, is it a dream or is it the aim to go for, and then to find the way we can cooperate together. If we take the economical situation now, when we see the Americans are now writing a lot about Europe, and some are criticizing whether euro is a good or bad, and then they look the figures, how much is it up or down for 1% or 2%, and is it good or bad. But now I think after criticizing there is already some understanding that we need also longer perspective analysis, because earlier the Americans were looking at the Europe that how this continent can fight so often, how they have the World War I, they have World War II, then there are crises in the Balkans and there are wars. How do we afford that? So I look at the euro still strongly, that it's some political will that is needed to keep up Europe to be a country with the peace and not a country of the World War II or III or anything like that. So I manage 1 or 2% less and growth or more growth, as we don't have a perfect euro system and not perfect union and not perfect parliamentarism, but this is the way to go forward, and I look forward the next generation to do something new and a little bit different, but not to waste the idea that we are better off working together than working or tearing apart Europe to 28 pieces. I don't know if any of you think that Europe would be any better tearing it apart for 28 units. I can't see that one. So it's growing every day, my understanding on the Europe as a whole, as working with the different nations.
Indeed, and during the last 20 years, European Union has also changed quite a lot, and when Finland joined the EU, it looked quite a lot different, and maybe, Esko, you could share what was your vision of Europe 20 years ago, and how has that changed during the last 20 years?
I think Europe has been performing better than what we expect today, because today all these problems in Greece, in some other member countries, these economic challenges, economic problems are every day covering or front pages of the newspapers and TV and media coverage. That creates a feeling that Europe is full of problems and full of negative things. But the fact is that Europe has been able to achieve quite a lot. But unfortunately, there are not that many recent achievements. We have achievements in 1950s and 60s and 70s when a common market was created and this, let's say, foundation for European peace was created. Or the latest one was actually creation of the single market, early 1990s. Decision was made 1986 and everything was finalized by the end of 1992. Within 6 years, Europe was able to create a single market, home market for 300 million people in that phase, now for 500 million people. That's a remarkable achievement. But what is going on now? What are the objectives of Europe today? How we can change the course of Europe? And I think we cannot look back. We have a lot of memories, but we cannot change the world and Europe by looking at those memories. How we were good to create wealth and create jobs and create social security and things like that. But we have to look at the future. I was born in a small rural community in Finland, in a horse-driven society. It was horse-driven society in 1950s where I was born in. I've seen Finland to become industrialized. I've seen Finland to become high-tech country. What I'm waiting for is that we are moving to digital future. And moving to digital future is as big challenge as creation of industrial society 40, 50 years ago. It's going to be a dramatic change. And now people are thinking we can keep everything what we have. And on the top of that, we can have something more. Forget that. We cannot keep what we have. We have to be able to give up something in order to achieve something new. And Europe is not very good in that. We are saying, no, this is not for us. No, this is not something we can accept. And I'm sorry to say, you, young generation in Europe, are paying the bills. You are paying the bills that there is not going to be flexibility and not going to be reforms rapidly enough in Europe. And that's why my dream today is that Europe starts to invest, especially for digital future. Because that digital future means higher economic growth, new jobs, better jobs, and also sustainable social security and wealth for the future.
And in fact, in this session, we have quite a lot of committees that touch upon the issue of digital age. Yes. Yeah. Would you like to react to that? You have been the Prime Minister for many years, also entering the crisis, and now you return to politics, so it would be interesting if you would share your view as well.
It's a question about ability to make decision and what is the decision-making system in Union. When I came as a Prime Minister and member of European Council, then the Union had 15 members, and when I went out, we had 27 member states. And I can say that the decision-making was much more complicated when we had 27 than 15 members. And how to keep or how to get enough strong cohesion inside Union and between the member states. It is one of the key issues. So that the cohesion is so strong that there is brave enough to make even that type of conclusions or decisions, which might be difficult to get through in your own home country. And that is a problem. The cohesion now, it is not enough strong so that we could make decisions with all the time with majority. I believe that the Union had in all principal issues still make decisions with unanimity. And in practical questions we can make majority decisions, but to keep the Union's cohesion enough strong. We had to understand maybe too much such countries which are not yet ready to make decisions. And what Esko mentioned about the dynamism of European Union and how we can get Union area enough flexible, that is a problem. In many countries we are afraid about flexibility or reforming the societies, and that's why we are leaving behind from China, India, especially from United States, and that is our problem. And as Esko told, you will be the generation which will pay the bill if we are not enough strong to develop European economies. And it's not only about question of well-being, of living standard, it's also the question of what type of influence Europe has in the global issues. Because I believe that in global negotiations and in global politics, the area or the union which is not enough dynamic, it is not interesting. If you want to get your voice to be heard, you had to have also something what others are willing to listen. And nowadays, I think that Europe is producing less and less such new reforms, new technologies, new ideas, which others are interested enough.
As we talk about or touch the digitalization, and we heard that you are going to work on that, so please, at least those group who will work on that, you could send me papers to the European Parliament, as I'm honored to be the shadow rapporteur on the new Commission paper on the digital single market, and we will work on that on next September right away when we go back. So I think that is very crucial for Europe, that how we will make a digital change, but I don't think the digital single market is enough, because the whole society is getting digital, not only the markets, but it's, as we heard from Esko, how the single markets were created, and at the time where we have a digital phase, digital world, it's not single, and it's really weird that there is more blockings on the digital internet than there is in the real life at the moment. So I'm a strong supporter of the digital single market, but also the new ideas what the digitalization will mean to our society, working contracts, working conditions, society, the gaps in between the poor and rich, all that will be dealt. So there is not ready answer in the European affairs where we talk. So if you could have good ideas, please send them in. So I give a promise that I will read them through and try to adapt more and more also that what we should do from the youth and from you too.
I think good example of weaknesses, decision-making weaknesses, Matti mentioned, is the situation or the fate of digital single markets, creation of digital single market in Europe. High-level political decision was made, if I remember correct, 2010. And before that, we were able to provide facts, not ideas, but facts, that the total economic impact of implementation of the digital single market in Europe will be roughly the same as the original, with the original Single Market Act. Roughly 0.5% growth potential per year by 2020. And now we have spent that we have spent now almost 6 years since that. With the original Single Market Act, 6 years was enough from decision making to full execution of the program. Now we have spent 5 to 6 years and we are still discussing. And we are still in the very early phase. And we are asking why Europe is lagging behind. Europe is lagging behind just because of that. And it's very simple and easy to say. There is going to be problems. If digital single market is going to be implemented, somebody will lose. There is not an option that everyone is going to win. There are some actors who are going to lose. But if we are not able to take that move, all of we are going to be losers. The whole Europe is going to lose. And finally, one element I'd like to see in Europe. I was president of Citra, and we went to the United States. You remember rock band Pink Floyd? Yes. And there was one guy who was playing in the original Pink Floyd, and he was entrepreneur. And he said, I had a company, I sold it, and now I invented another one. I have put everything at risk. And one Finn was asking him, how come you are doing this? You have done wonderful career in music, you have made a lot of money there, you have been entrepreneur, you have made a lot of money, and you are risking everything again. I still remember what this guy said. Risk is great. Have you heard in Europe somebody to say, risk is great?
Yeah, in fact, the vice presidents of Tampere 2015 and our editor Buzz Manger were interviewed in a newspaper in Tampere, Aamulehti, the other day, and the title of that was that crises are not shaking the youth's belief in the United Europe. So I think that's pretty much, we'll hope that this is the spirit that's going to carry a bit longer as well in Europe. Actually, there are a few questions that were posted on Slack, this application that we are using throughout the session. And I have a question from Christine Sheldon. If you could just stand up so we see who you are. Yes, in the very back. She's from Committee on Industry, Research and Energy. And she wanted to ask, considering Brexit, how do you believe the value of EU membership has changed over the years? Who would like to start?
Maybe I will start because I was Prime Minister when we became member of the European Union. And I think in that phase, the most important impact for Finland came through access to the common market. And Nokia's story in 1990s was something, it was like a miracle. Can you imagine, early 1990s, we had roughly 10 million mobile phone connections in the world. 1990, the figure was actually roughly 10 million. So it was luxury. Nokia a huge risk, but company didn't have any other opportunity, and they invested everything for that. And there were a lot of investors and analysts who said, too high risk, it's not going to fly, there is not going to be that kind of growth. Can you imagine, the final figure, year 2000, number of mobile connections was not 50 million, not 500 million, but 700 million. So it was a huge risk, it was a bet for the future, and together with EU membership, Nokia was able to grow faster than it had been able to do without EU membership. So EU was opening Finland a new home market and access to global growth. So that was the original impact in the EU membership for Finland. But I think that then Miapetra and Matti are better to answer what has happened since that.
Well, I'm an Erasmus generation, so I did my exchange in Britain. That was working for British Gas as I studied to be an electrical engineer. Good timing, but then I left to the politics at the wrong time. And then I also was in France, and and that was in '94, and then I came and campaigned for the membership because I couldn't see the reason why not to be along with the other European countries in the same community, and that was my motivation. But then I've been so active on the EU politics all the time, all these 20 years, and it's most often asked question that what has changed and how is it now. So it really made me think. Somebody said that you can mention the amount of the cereal packages on the shelves of the supermarket, because you cannot believe, but when I was young there were 4 kinds. There were Kellogg's with the sugar or non-sugar, or with the rice stuff, or then the Kellogg's with the chocolate. So there were 4, and I went to the American, I saw them in the 20s, and now I do have them in Finland, but I don't know if that's the very good political reason to have it. But in the end, if you still look at that, you only have one country production in your availability, so then you lose a lot. That when it's on the health sector, when it's on the innovations, if you only produce them for one country, it doesn't make you on the level that you want to reach. So forget the cereals, but take something more important in the so you can see the internal markets is anyway a good sign. But then also youth mobility, youth exchange is always praised, and it's very good sign too. But I tend to be a little bit criticizing ourselves, because I know the young generation are more wise than we thought when we joined the EU, because I was the chair of the European movement in Finland for 7 years, and then I saw the shocking figures that less Finnish people are taking part in the exchanging programs than there were when we joined the EU in '95 and after. And I wanted to look deeper in those figures, that what has happened. Now it's so easy, and now you cannot charge more than you charge your own country, youth people and students. But then I noticed at least the young people in Finland, they are quite wise. There are increasing number if you count all together, but they are choosing the Asia. So I really think that there should be some hunger to develop Europe to go first one in the global market, because the civilization and the structures that we also have should be able to give more, should perform more. So I believe Europe can perform better. Digitalization, not only the digital market, but the digital society, we should go forward there. But sometimes I'm so frustrated that how did it took 15 years to create the digital citizenship in Finland, that you have your national identity in digital form, and still it's very weak, but now we have a law ready for that. In between these guys, I was working for Prime Minister Lipponen when after Aho and before Vanhanen, so the Social Democrat Prime Minister Lipponen, I was working for him, and every month we had the longer meeting, and after every meeting he said, go to downstairs of this building and ask, where is the digital signature, where is the digital identity, the process, where is it going on, and why it takes so long time? And it is because we have so good systems already. And now we saw the Estonians, what they did. And you know the answer in Finland, what is it? We are so big country. Estonia, they are smaller. So welcome all of you who are bigger country than Finland, we are so big country that's why it sometimes takes so long and it's so difficult. So I think we should press our member states from the European Youth Parliament, from the European Parliament, that we should go forward on digitalization, and I look forward.
That I can say that in political life, the membership in European Union has changed a lot, and nowadays the European Union affairs, they are a crucial part of daily and weekly political life. About half of the bills in our national parliament are EU-based bills. So big part of our parliament's work is nowadays part of the European Union decision-making process. But in the larger picture is such that we normally overestimate the influence of membership in European Union. Most of the development what we have had during last 20 years in Finland had probably happened also in the case we wouldn't be a member. but of course the membership helps us in that way that we are now also taking part of the decision making in the issues which are important to us. But I believe that the big changes in our society has happened totally which has not any dependent to European Union membership, and I mentioned only a few. First is we are having a huge aging population problem in Finland, and that is the challenge which our parliament and also the next parliament have to find some solutions. The second big problem or challenge is the structural change in our basic industries. It has been a huge change, and it is going on all the time, and it has happened totally with any link to European Union. Maybe one problem which I want also mention one problem which we have because of our membership in common currency euro. And it's not maybe because of euro, but it is because our society has not been able to be in that way flexible, which the membership in euro should mean. Before our euro membership, we had a tradition, maybe a very bad tradition, of devaluations of our national currency, which was the final solution when we had lose our competitiveness. But during these last 15 years, our system in labor unions and in employers organization, we have not been able to change the system so that our labor markets are flexible enough to live inside the common currency. And during last already 6, 7, 8 years, we had a lack of competitiveness. And our GDP is going down, our foreign trade is going down, and we had to find ways to get competitiveness back. But it is not because of European Union, it is because we are not
more ambitious. Could we have James Joy stand up? Yes, so he is from Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, and he posted a question. Keeping in mind the session theme, ideas change minds and people the world, what big idea gets each of you excited for the future of Europe and the world at present? What is something that could change a lot in the future? It's a bit trickier one. Ambitious.
You remember Wayne Gretzky, at least all Finns and Swedes and Canadians, Czechs, at least know. He's the number one in ice hockey, the best player ever in ice hockey. And Wayne Gretzky was once asked, what is the difference between a good player and a star? Have you heard this? No? So, one person has heard it. You can close your eyes. So he replied by saying, a good player is skating where the puck is, but a star is skating where the puck is going to be. And I think this is the message for Europe. All the time, Matti told what's going on in Finland. Europe as a whole is acting in the same way. We are skating where the puck is. We are trying to solve the problems everyone else are trying to solve. And to be honest, when looking at this digital future, which is, in my opinion, the best promise for Europe, in there to be number one in the world even today. But we lost that game. The US took the lead. The US had a couple of capacities we missed, and they were able to do that. They were lagging behind Europe in the 1990s, but in 2000s they passed Europe. They took the leadership, and now if you look at the most important players in this field, almost all are American or Chinese, but not European. We lost that game. What to do? Should we look back those golden days of Europe? No. Should we try to do the same as Americans or Chinese are doing? No. But we have to bet what is going to happen next. What is the next big thing to happen? And this is not discussed in Europe at all. We are not even trying to think what is going
We're running out of time, but if you want to just briefly say your last words.
I think we should be proud of the Horizon, which is also in my committee, that it is the biggest R&D program in the world. But if it's too bureaucratic, too difficult to get it, too, like we say, so digitalization, I think, should help to get rid of the extra burden of the bureaucracy that Europe bears always in its programs. It should bring openness, it should bring trust, and it should bring all this available for everyone, not only when you're specialized on the EU programs or EU language we are using on all these abbreviations and whatever. Has been, I think that since the crisis, Europe has been too much for the Europe for the bankers. And I think it's lacking in the publicity, the voice of the citizens, voice of the young people, voice of the other many things. So I think the climate change is talked in Parliament every day. The cycle economy is talked every day. But what the title is, it's the Greece, banks and economy. Still, it's back. So I think we should make the voices to talk about what else Europe is than this crisis and how to get rid of it. But I think we should be more brave. You should be the next generation to be more brave. If you go where everybody else go, if you are like everybody else are, what you are, you're like everybody else. And I think we should trust to ourselves, bring up the new ideas and not to follow but to lead. So be brave.
A few years ago I read a life story of Winston Churchill, and after reading the relatively thick book I realized that to him actually to win a battles was not the real thing. All what matters was to win the whole war. And I believe that to put the level of ambition level to right level to high enough is important, and to commit to reach that. And one thing where European Union had to commit strongly is the tackling against climate change, and all what is related to that: renewable energies, the new technologies, way how we organize our life. It is important, and I hope that you will concentrate enough strong also to that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure like it wouldn't have been possible to leave Finland without a couple of hockey quotes. So, and I'm sure there will be more coming in the last days of the session as well. Thank you for all the panelists. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for the audience for listening and for questions. There were quite many and we didn't have time to go nearly even a small part of all the questions that were posed. So thank you.